cup at a time. Yeah, this is tea time. Yeah, making a difference. One cup at a time. Tea time. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time. Making a difference. One cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time.
Well, welcome to Tea Time. It is afternoon tea time, and Miss Liz is back. And today I have the incredible Lynda Harlos here. She is a mother who will be speaking on her story. She is a mother survivor, so we want to put that out there before anybody sends in questions on how to get a survivor out. She cannot speak on that topic because she is the mother. So we're going to bring awareness to parenting and that. So if you have any questions or comments or support that you'd like to leave in, please put it in the comments. Please give StreamYard permission to do all of that good stuff. So before we get started, we're going to do the disclaimer and then a little bit of bio, and then we're going to get Lynda in here. And we're going to spill a good cup of tea with you all today, this afternoon. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz myself is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time show hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith. However, may bring forth dialogues and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the giving time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participants are responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussions for some where they may be emotionally at risk. It is significant to know that this show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer inspire awareness and connection and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about the disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in today's show in any aspect, I myself, Miss Liz, welcomes you. And should you decide that the show is not made for you at this time, I respect those wishes and will see you at a later show at a later date and time. And again, all tea times are done on Thursday this year in 2024, as they did in 2023. And if you see a tea time that is on a Monday or Tuesday, it's a rescheduled tea time or it's a surprise tea time that Miss Liz is bringing to the table. So now a little bit about Lynda. Lynda Harlos is a sex trafficking and abuse prevention educator, mom of a sex traffic survivor, speaker, author, blogger, certified family coach, and has a book called Walk a Mile, which we'll be talking about. Lynda is a sex trafficking and abuse prevention educator for parents and professionals who are in contact with children between the ages of 2 to 25. She is also a keynote speaker, author, and family coach, and hosts a parenting talk show. Lynda has 2 parenting books available on Amazon. However, the one she is the most passionate about is the newest book, hopefully coming out, which talks about her struggles as a parent, realizing that she thought was a teenage hormonal issue was her daughter being lured, groomed, and gained into sex trafficking. A mother of sex trafficking victim, she endeavored to turn their pain into purpose, globally into the hopes of preventing victimization. In doing so, she works with many organizations, including several victim services across Canada, Covenant Houses, Courage for Freedom, and many more. She has given many interviews to spread awareness with CBC, Global News, CTV North, 360 Kids, National Council of Jewish Women of Canada, Toronto Star, and many more. You can check out her work and watch training videos on her website and YouTube channel called parentswithpurpose.ca. Now, let me get Lynda in here and we're going to have some tea. Welcome, Lynda.
Thank you, Liz. I appreciate that welcome.
It is an honor to have you here. As we were speaking in the back, we're going to get into some parenting red flags and stuff like that. Again, Lynda, I want to really thank you for all of the stuff that you're doing. But I want to start off how I start off all my interviews. Who was Lynda as a little girl and who is Lynda now?
Linda as a little girl. That's a good question, Liz. I've never had that one before. Linda as a little girl was a goody two-shoe. I was the type of girl that never did anything wrong because I couldn't stand the consequences, right? It was like, if my parents said don't, I didn't. And the odd time I actually broke the rules and I got a consequence, it was like the end of the world to me. But I was a person who was also shy. I'm an introvert. Even though I speak all over the world, it seems like an oxymoron. It's not. And that is still who I am today. I'm still an introvert. I am still a person who's a bit of a goody two-shoes. I do not like to rock the boat. I will challenge people now that I'm older and have been and lived through a few things. I know where my boundaries are. And so I will challenge people now, which I would never have done as a child. But then I had 4 kids, and of course my 4 kids are completely different than me. So then that kind of gave me even a lot more ways where I had to put boundaries in place or challenges, but discovering all the different personalities. Because I have 2 kids who are very much unlike me and my husband, because my husband was a goody two-shoes too. And I have 2 kids who decided they were going to stretch every boundary I put in place and stomp all over them. And they did. And they are amazing human beings, but raising them was a little tough. Anyway, that's me then and now.
And the reason that I ask all my guests this question is because sometimes when we get into adulthood, we become advocates, right? We become voices for something that we might have not had as children. I want to get into the story of you and your daughter and why we're here today and why we're talking on sex trafficking. Again, this tea time may be triggered, so trigger warnings. If it's too much for you, I will not be offended if you feel that you can't tune in. But the purpose of this tea time is to bring the awareness. So we felt that it was really important to bring the awareness to this topic. So Lynda, I want to get into the topic of the name of your platform. Let's get into that, and then we'll get into the book and we'll get into the story. So let's start off with the program, the name of the program.
Okay. Parent with Purpose was actually founded back in 2014, and it was long before we found out about my daughter. But it was really just my way of, social media was just really starting up and there was a lot going on, but it seemed like social media was really attacking parents or parents were attacking each other. So I was trying to start a platform, not that was social media, but just a place where people, I would write an article and people could come in and make comments of it and we could share ideas and say, yeah, we like this or we didn't. It was really just a way, because I know how alone I felt out there and the way I parent, it didn't seem like anybody else I knew in the world parented like I parented. And I just wanted to know that I wasn't alone and I wanted other people to know they weren't alone. Back in 2019, that's when we found out what happened to my daughter. It had happened 8 years earlier, but we didn't know that. So in 2019, I switched everything up in Parent with Purpose, and I switched it to basically being a platform for awareness of domestic sex trafficking. Now, if you go and take a look, you'll still see some of my old vlogs and my old blogs, and I kept them on there just for giggles in case anybody wants to go and see them. There's no sense throwing them in the garbage. So they are there if anybody wants to check them out. But right now, the platform is there to help anybody understand what domestic sex trafficking looks like and to give them resources to go farther once they're aware and if they think there might be any danger of anybody they know.
So how did you come up with the name besides your daughter's story? Was it because of the story or was it?
No, actually, I almost thought of changing it. Parent with Purpose was, I'm not really 100% sure. I threw around 100 different ideas. I mean, I'm sure you did the same thing when you were coming up with, right? And that's just what we do. And I don't know. I've always believed that whatever we do in life, we should do it with purpose. So I was a parent, I was a stay-at-home mom. So while I was thinking about what it is I wanted to do, and then just throwing around a few ideas, Parent with Purpose just seemed to have that slam, like, oh, okay. And the problem with it is a lot of times people will put an S. So they'll say Parents with Purpose, or they'll say Parenting with Purpose, or Parenting with a Purpose. And it's not, but that's okay. That's why I have it in all of my backgrounds and any interviews I do, so people can't mess it up. But it's parentwithpurpose.ca. But it's so easy to mess up because it's, parents, parenting, parrots, right? It's like, but anyway, so it was just because it sounded good, and because I do believe that no matter what we do in life, we should do it with purpose.
Well, I think in the word purpose grabs people's attention as well, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And so it's that word that just, it's kind of like, look over here, like turn your head.
And I think, unfortunately, and when I was talking to one of my girlfriends about this, we went out for lunch and we were hashing around the title. I said, you know what? I know for me, when I first started being a parent, I just assumed somehow I'd figure it all out. Like, I didn't really stop to think, what am I going to do? What am I not going to do? What did my parents do that I liked? What did my parents do that I didn't like? Like, I didn't think of that. To me, it was just like, you get married, you have kids, you raise them, and you hope for the best, right? And it wasn't until, after the second one come along, I realized there is a way that you can parent without it being a parenting style, because everybody had styles, and I didn't really want to I don't believe in badges and styles and all that kind of stuff. You just do your best, but there is a way to parent and do it on purpose. So you're trying to figure out, what is it you want to do? What is it you want your kids to learn? What is it you want? How do you want to be in their lives? What does this look like? And it's not something I was ever taught to ask or to even consider. So after the second child come along, and I realized, okay, I have an opportunity here for this to be more than just, oh, let's hope for the best. And so, purpose is definitely a word that I've taken and hung on to in many different areas of my life, but definitely with parenting for sure. Now, if you have 4 kids, you better be doing it on purpose, because it's a lot of work.
Right. It's not because it's fun, right? Well, it is fun. Parenting is fun, but I mean, when you're having children, I myself have 4. I have 3 that are living and 1 that's passed, but it's a challenge, and there's no instruction book out there, right? So
Nope.
if you're having children and you're having more than one, that there's a purpose, why these children are coming, and what example do you want to be for them, right?
Yes. And see, you said there's no manual out there, and that's, if they came out with a manual, this would be so much easier, but they don't, right? And all the parenting books out there don't really delve into the fact that your kids might be different than the next door neighbor's kids. And so you can't parent exactly the same, right? So then I wrote 2 parenting books, and honestly thought it was the stupidest thing I've ever done, was to write 2 parenting books, because most parenting books don't delve into that. But that's what my parenting books were trying to do, is to say, okay, so here's a situation, but you got this child and they're doing that. And this is what I tried, and that didn't work. And so then you might have a child who's like this and trying that. So my 2 parenting books are quite different for that reason, is because you can't there's no parenting style that works. There is no, this is what it's going to look like, and this is what all the pieces, and they're all just going to fit in nice and snug, because they don't. It doesn't work that way.
We all have a different puzzle.
We all have a different puzzle, and unfortunately, I think it morphs as well as we're going along in life. It changes on us. So,
absolutely,
yeah.
The pieces keep changing, right? But we need the community and that involved as well with parenting. That's why we have different courses and different workshops and stuff like that out there to help us. I tell this to my daughter, because I have a granddaughter, and she's like, "Mom, am I a good parent?" And I was like, "Well, do you think you're doing good?" And she's like, "Well, I don't know. I think you're doing okay. Like, is there something that you feel you're not doing?" But one thing that I got from your website, Lynda, when I checked it out, was communication.
Yes.
The importance of communication and conversation, healthy, good conversation. And on your website, you have something about the cell phone and contact information. Do you want to share a little bit about that? Because that really got my eye, because we're giving these children cell phones at a young age.
Yes.
And it's almost like we're giving them a tool of being, exploited. I've only had 1 child on Teatime, and I was really guarded with that child, because I feel that it's so easy for kids with with the gadgets, with technology. Yes. So I want to get into that a little bit from your website, the cell phone and the connections and contacts and all that.
Okay, well, in the cell phone section there, what it is a contract. So it's something you can download and actually read off with your kids and get them to sign it. And you should be the one paying for their phone until an adult, so that then you also have control over that, so that when and if something happens, you can go to the police and something can be done. If you put the phone under the child's name, first of all, up until a certain age, you can't anyway. But I personally don't think you should let anybody have a cell phone under their own name until they're at least 18. 21 is a better age. 25 is even a better age, but quite often they've moved out of the home by then. But at least get them to sign that cell phone contract and discuss it with them and find out if there's things, because in the contract, there's options in there where, you can pick or not pick certain things and you can cross things off. But it just makes it so the child is aware that this is not just a toy. This is something that is very serious and something that they have to take very serious. Just like when they're riding a bike, we make them wear a helmet and we talk to them about road safety and we do those kind of things. We need to do the same thing with the cell phone. So it's very important that we, and there's lots of cell phone contracts out there. I got mine from a guy who actually did an interview with me. His son ended up committing suicide because he was sextorted, and even though they had a contract, by the time he was 18, he ended up having his own phone, and that's when things kind of went downhill. But again, it's just one of those things. He thought his son was safe because he was old enough, and that's why I'm saying 18 is not old enough. We know the brain isn't developed until they're 25. And we go, well, yeah, but they're moved out by the time they're 25. Some of them stay with us until 40, right? But anyway, it's like, so like, how do I protect them when they're 25? Well, my daughter was moved out. My youngest daughter, not the one who was trafficked, was moved out when she was 24. And it was during COVID, and she had decided she was going to do some dating. And so she was going to meet up with this guy, and they were going to go and see the falls. And I looked at her and I went, you're going to what? And she went, well, we're going to, and I said, whose car are you going in? She goes, well, his. I said, no, you're not. And she didn't live at home, but she was telling me about the date. And I just, no, you're not. And I said, okay, wait a minute. I know I'm supposed to approach this a little bit more better. So let me back up a step, but no, you're not. And then I proceeded to remind her about what happened to her daughter, my daughter, her sister. And I proceeded to tell her, I said, how do you know he's going to stop at the falls? How do you know he's not going to go right on through to the States? And that is a type of trafficking that didn't even happen to my daughter. That's the typical type of trafficking that we're aware of, where they just, convince the girl to get in a vehicle and then they leave with them. I said, you're not doing that. I said, I have no problems with you meeting him, but you're meeting him in a public place. You're doing the buddy system that I taught you. Find your friend, make sure that she's close by, make sure that she's texting you after a half hour to give you that out if you need, like, you remember the buddy system? She went, yeah. I said, do it. You do not get into a car with somebody you've never met. And in fact, you do not get in a car with somebody until you've known them for a long time and you know some of their friends and you know some of their family. You do not get into the car with somebody. And she was 24. She was 24, and my older daughter had already been trafficked. So we cannot assume that our kids will think about it because the frontal lobe isn't completely developed. They do not know sometimes how to make the right choices, and they need our guidance constantly. And I don't know about you, Liz, but I mean, there's been times I've sat and morally debated with something within myself and tried to talk myself into, oh, that's okay. I'm sure I can do that. Throughout my whole adult life. So what makes us think our kids aren't going to do this? So it's just, So 18 is too young still. 21 is too young still. But like I said, you got to figure out as a parent how you're going to let go of those reins and start letting your kids have some independence. And if you've had those conversations and if you have those lines of communication open, I mean, if she hadn't told me she was going on that date, God help us. Yeah. God help us. But we're that type of family where we kind of know what everybody's doing and where everybody's going. And we do stay in touch with each other and we talk about our days. And so those communications, those lines of communications, even the simple ones, even the one, how was your day? What are you doing next? What's your goals? Those kind of things. They're all important conversations because those are what will start to show you the possible red signs that could be coming up in their lives.
Well, and I think that's really important, right? I think it's really important, Lynda, that we get the conversations going, right?
Yeah.
we start having these engaging conversations. And dating sites is a place where they do grab women,
Absolutely.
and grab
Absolutely.
men as well, because there are boys too that are being exploited. And there's so many different dating sites out there. There's so
Mhm.
many, my son was in a relationship for a couple of years, and then he went onto a dating site, and some of the people, like, he would come and talk to me like, Mom, what do you think this? Oh, I'm not sure about this one. But I said, like, if you need to, bring them here, like, get them to
Yes.
come to the house. I don't mind having a cup of tea with them. I could do that 20 question kind of thing. Like, what, why are you interested in my boy? Like,
The
why
mama
are you
bear is
interested
coming
in
out.
my girl?
Which
Right?
is which is also though something that some kids don't want you to do, right? So we have to figure out each child, and we have to figure out how they work. If I had offered that to this daughter, she would have gone running to the hills, and she would have told me another thing. So I couldn't give that as an option to her. I couldn't say, well, bring them on home. To her, you don't bring them home until you're about ready to marry them. So I'm like, okay. And I mean, she was also our child out of 4 that didn't ever want to hug us. And, she wasn't as affectionate as the rest of us were. But, that doesn't make her wrong.
Yeah.
So I had to learn with her to help her come up with a different way to make sure that I kind of knew what was going on in her life. Give her those other learning skills she needed in order to have buddy systems and those kind of things to help keep her safe. Because and I have another son who he'd bring everybody home. Mom, what do you think of this one? And it's like, I like that because that's easy for me. I can give my 2 cents worth in that, but it's hard not to be the interfering parent.
Yeah.
But we can't be. But we have to be their safe place, the
Yeah.
place where they can come and ask us questions without judgment or criticism, the place where they can throw different ideas around that they know you might not agree with, just to, because it's more important that they talk to you than they talk to a stranger who might be somebody who will abuse or traffic them. And the traffickers are trained to listen and to spend time and to care and to show, to find out what this person wants in their life. And if it's just somebody to talk and bounce ideas off, or, what, I don't like my parents' religion and they won't let me talk about what I think is right. And perfect opportunity for a trafficker to come in and talk. My parents have a really rough curfew, or they won't let me drink, or they won't, and if those kids can't come back and talk to you about it and say, okay, Mom, so why is the curfew this? When can it start being a little bit older? What's your problem? Like, what is it your concern is? Is there a way we can work together to try to come up with, ways to compromise on this? Because if your kids feel there's no give and take with you at all, and you're this wrought iron person, and these are my rules, and I'm never breaking my rules, they're not ever going to think you're the safe place to come and talk. And therefore, they're going to find somebody else who is, and they're going to do everything in their power to break every rule you have, just so they can figure out who they are. And that's their journey, is to figure out who they are. So we can't stunt them into finding out who they are. And your kids know, trust me, your kids know just from conversations at dinner or whatever, what your morals are, what you think is right or wrong, what your hopes and dreams are for yourself, for them. So they're not asking for your opinion. They're asking for, okay, Mom, can I say my opinion now? And can we come to a compromise? Is there some way we can, agree to disagree? I mean, that's become our favorite expression in our house, right? We're just going to agree to disagree on that one. And let's see if we can work out a way that I'm comfortable and it gives you what it is you think you need. So you don't always come to a place where you're going to agree on everything. You don't. But if you've been ready and willing to bend on other things, on the few things that you're not ready and willing to bend on, they'll at least have a little bit more respect for that.
I totally agree with that. If we come in like a mad dog and a big mama bear, because I say I'm a mama bear sometimes, I'm just like, okay, who did this to my daughter and my son? Like, but if we come in like that, they're not going to come to us because they're going to feel like, oh, Mom's going to go on a rage there. Like,
Yeah.
so,
Yes.
you have to take that step back. You have to. And I've learned that through parenting over time with no instruction books, that, sometimes taking a step back and watching a situation and saying, oh, okay, maybe if I come this way instead of that way, they might come to me. you know, and have that conversation. And when they were younger, because of my situation, we didn't have that conversation, open discussion, because they were in care. But I mean, as they got older, they're starting to find out that, oh, it's okay to come and talk to mom. It's okay to have that conversation.
Yeah.
So now I want to get into your story, Lynda, on the book that you wrote, Walk a Mile. With your daughter that got trafficked, how old was she when she?
She was 18. So she ended up going to a party one night that we didn't know about. We thought she was at a sleepover, and she got drugged and gang raped. She became pregnant. And due to that pregnancy, she ended up losing an awful lot of her friends because they thought she was lying about it. The one person who would and should have corroborated her story didn't. And years later, we found out the reason why is because her boyfriend was one of the people who raped my daughter, and he threatened her. So she was scared to go to the police with my daughter. So she lost a lot of her friends and started getting very ostracized. And this guy was standing in the school parking, smoking area, and happened to notice that she was kind of standing off by herself. And he was a couple of years older than her. He'd finished school. She was in grade 12. And then he contacted her on social media after that and just slowly built a relationship. So it's not your typical story where, he does this thing and he's gang bang, and he's there all the time, and he's, hovered over her and swooped in, and this all happened like in 2 or 3 months. This took him, the baby was born. So he met her at school in the end of the school year of grade 11 for her, actually. And then she went back to school for a little bit in 12 and then changed and went and did correspondence because she was too pregnant. But then the baby was born in January. And so he became her boyfriend, like just after the summer. And I mean, boyfriend, like typical boyfriend, or at least so we thought. And then over time convinced her to move out with him at his parents' place because they didn't like our rules, and then realized that was a bad idea. And she moved back home, and then he convinced her to move out again in their apartment together. And then it was after that shortly after that, like within weeks of that he started trafficking her.
Wow.
Yeah. So it took him a while. And we don't think he was a pro at it. We think my daughter was his first one, but he had a lot of friends who were doing it and had talked him into doing this. And they had already had a third party. So it was a very organized crime. They had a third party person already. And my daughter had to go meet her. It was a her, believe it or not. And so it was, and my daughter was coerced and threatened into it. He threatened to beat up her son. And she, of course, thought she had said yes because of the threats, and so teaching age-appropriate consent is also one of my goals now, because if there's coercion, manipulation, any or threats, a yes is never a yes. It's not really consent. So it's something that's extremely important that we teach. And that's one of the things I teach about in my workshop. But hindsight is wonderful. I did not teach it to her before, unfortunately. So that's kind of how it all started. It took him almost a full year. Yeah, almost over a full year, actually over a full year. I see, I've wrote the book and I've got all the dates in the book, but in my head, I still can't keep it all straight. But anyway, so yeah, it took him a full year before he finally got her out and into a place of his own, and then convinced her, coercion and manipulation and threatening isn't really convincing. But anyway, to let this happen. And it was only supposed to be for a short period of time to help pay for the bills, so that eventually they could start saving money. They could get, a better place, because they were living in a shithole. And we didn't want her to. We begged her not to leave. But anyway, that's kind of the way that goes and she had a child of her own. And one of her main things she wanted in life was to have a big family like we have. And to have a loving husband. And when she got raped and got pregnant, she thought for sure nobody would ever want her, right? Nobody like her dad is going to want her, and she's not going to have a loving relationship. And unfortunately, she convinced herself of that, and just seemed to grab onto the first person who was ready and willing to help. And anyway, long story short, he's now out of the picture, thank God. But
so did he ever get prosecuted for what he did?
No, he didn't. A couple of reasons why. Number one is it was over the 7-year period by the time she realized what had happened to her. She lived with that secret for 8 years and didn't tell us because she didn't know. She called us one night and said, Mom, come pick me up. No questions asked. Okay, which was what our kids were allowed to do. So we did. I picked her up. I was so grateful she was leaving. And she'd come home and she stayed with us for almost a year. Eventually picked up, she was on welfare for a little while. They really don't pay enough for you to pay your bills. She was trying 2 or 3 different jobs. It was really difficult for her. She did end up finding eventually like a cleaning job and people who were ready and willing to help little bits here and there. She has an angel. In my book, I call him my angel, who was one of her clients, but then and he never wanted sex. He was just an older gentleman who just wanted to talk. And after she left the business, he then got her a job in a cleaning company that he owned and got her a little rundown car, bought a few clothes and, hockey tickets for her and my grandson. So just did little bits here and there that made it easier for her to be able to really start a life on her own. And she did. Eventually she met the husband she's with now, but all that took a while. But then it was 8 years before she found out. And it's only because she had decided she wanted to become a police officer. So she was sitting down one day with a police officer, just asking some questions. And they were talking about trafficking. And that's when it clued into her. That's actually what had happened to her.
Wow.
So when she went and got some counseling with one of the organizations around here and tried to figure out what to do and what not to do, that's when she come and told me. The police said, well, it's over the 7 years. We can, but it's going to be an uphill battle. The second thing that you're missing is proof of fear of life. And so we joke, but not really. We say, so what is what is a person supposed to be doing when they're waterboarded in the hotel room because they wouldn't do what the client does? We're supposed to say, hey, wait a minute. Can I get my camera ready for this? Like, what do you mean proof of fear of life? Like, how do we do that? Like anybody who's been in abusive relationships understands you don't ever get proof. It's too controlled and too, the phones are controlled and your movements are controlled and who you talk to is controlled. And trafficking is just the extreme form of abuse because they're abusing you physically, mentally, emotionally, and sexually, and they're exploiting you. That's the only difference is the exploitation part of it. So how do you get proof of life? So no, he was never prosecuted. In a way, it's kind of a good thing because it would be difficult for me we would still be in the court systems, probably even now.
Yeah.
And then my book wouldn't be able to come out and I wouldn't be, so it would be good for him to be behind bars. That's always the best option, but because it wasn't an option for us, then we did the next best thing and we decided to turn our pain into purpose and hopefully help other people not be caught in the same boat we're in.
So Lynda, you don't know this guy is doing this to somebody else, right?
We don't think he is. We're not 100% sure. My daughter did warn her. He is living with somebody. And my daughter went right up to the front door and said, this is what he did to me. Don't let him do it to you. So, and this is what it is. This is what it's called. Don't let him convince you that it's something else. It's not just for a short time. So we hope not. Truthfully, I don't think he's bright enough to do like multiple people. I just don't think he's coordinated enough or organized enough or motivated enough, truthfully, to do multiple people. But unfortunately, he's got connections with people who are definitely in this, like it is an organized crime thing here in our area. And that's who the third party person was. So.
Well, and this is why I wanted to have this conversation with you, Lynda, because we don't have these conversations, right? Nope. A lot of people think, in Canada, it's not happening. Yep. It happens in Canada. It happens in the US. It happens across the globe.
It does.
And the red signs sometimes are right in our face, but we're so close to that person that we don't even see it, right? And I think that's where it gets really frustrating as a parent is when it's right in our face and we don't see it. And then we're hard on ourselves and we're like, why did we not see this? Yeah. Were you like that, Lynda, when you found out?
Yeah, I was. As a matter of fact, I didn't realize it takes a while for a person to figure out what will make them stressed and what won't make them stressed or what they're like when they're stressed. And so it took me a long time to realize that I just internalize everything. And so I wasn't aware of how badly I was kind of sitting in that mode that you were talking about, until one day my daughter said to me, "It's okay, Mama. You're allowed to cry. You're a secondary victim. This affects you too." And I did. I burst into tears. I just blubbered like an idiot for probably 2 solid hours. And up until that point, from the time she told me until that point, I walked in a fog. Like, I really don't even remember much of it, even though I did some parenting talk shows on it, and I was working on trying to get a presentation ready. I don't remember any of that. I just felt like I was walking in fog because I had this extreme sense of, wow, how did I miss this? First of all, how did I even not know about this as far as what domestic sex trafficking is? And then how did I miss all those red flags? And we didn't miss them, but we didn't know how to identify them. We didn't know. To us, he just looked like he was abusive. And that was bad enough to us. And we were doing everything we could to try to get her to leave him, to get out of that situation. Please don't move in with him, and all those things. But, and then to find out that it was even one layer deeper and that he was trafficking her. I went into complete shock for months. And then when I was allowed to cry and deal and cope with that, the reason why it bothers me to this day to even talk about that little piece of it is because my daughter is giving me permission, the one who went through it, the one who had to suffer because of my mistakes, is giving me permission to cry. It's okay, Mama, you can cry. She's strong. She's tenacious. She's the one that had to go through it. And she's given me permission to cry. But anyway, we've done what we could to learn to turn that pain into purpose, and educate instead of wallow.
Well, and when I asked you for your tea, Lynda, I asked all my guests this. You gave me trafficking, prevention, abuse, educating, and educator and awareness, and that's exactly what we're doing tonight. Is this afternoon is we're sharing the awareness of your story, but your story could be saving someone else's life out there who's listening to this podcast, who will listen to the replay. And I highly suggest that these podcast tea times get shared with people you might know that need them. This is why we bring the awareness to the table. This is why Miss Liz brings the tea in a different way, because we want to save some lives. We want to make people aware that there is things happening right in front of our faces, and sometimes we don't see it. And then for myself as a survivor, Lynda, I get very frustrated when I could have done something, but I didn't pay attention to the red flags. I was just like, oh, maybe I'm just being overbearing. I'm just being that mama bear. I'm just, not everybody is a bad seed. You play all these things in your mind, right? As a parent. And that's why I asked you that question, was because as a parent, sometimes, it is hard. And you're in this fog when it hits you. And when your children say, it's okay, Mama, you can cry. You're part of this too, it kind of gives you that awakening of, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Our children are really strong. We've made really strong children. And sometimes they're a little stronger than what we are, and then we're like, oh, where's that parenting book, right?
Yeah.
This is supposed to be the other way around. I'm supposed to be saying it's okay for you to cry, and you're telling me, I completely 100% understand that.
Yeah.
Before we went live, we talked about, people speaking on terms that they haven't lived. It does more damage. This is why you're here. You're here as a parent. You're not here as a survivor, but you're here as a parent who went through it. And I think it's deeply important that the services and professionals out there really listen to this tea time and understand that the damage that can be done if you don't experience it, the damage that can be done by you just studying a course or studying a case, actually start working with people who actually live it and understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Lynda, you're there for the parents, and you said before we went live that a lot of people say, well, why don't you get involved with the survivors? Well, because you weren't a survivor. You were a parent of a survivor. So I really want to get that out there for all the listeners out there. Let's start working with people who actually have the experience, and not just people just talking on topics, because there's a lot of talk going on in the world, but there's not a lot of awareness and a lot of good experience and feeling and emotions that are being put out there. Unless you live it, you shouldn't be speaking of it. You know, that's one of my biggest messages out there. You
Agreed.
know, as a speaker and as an advocate, you know, you get asked, can you speak on this topic? I don't know. I never lived it. So my answer is going to have to be no. You know, we have to have that power and that purpose to say, you know what, I can't do this one.
Yeah.
Let's give it to somebody who can do it.
Yeah. And see when, I mean, they're always looking for guests, right? And when somebody is well spoken and, or they're, you know, whatever is going on, and sometimes they'll just grab at anybody. And so, you know, I've had people ask me if I'd be ready and willing to speak on suicide, or ready and willing to speak on mental awareness, or any of those kind of things. Yes, if I can pull in the sex trafficking part, in how that would affect somebody to possibly commit suicide, or how that will affect their mental health. But my story is about domestic sex trafficking. That's my story. Will it affect you mentally? Absolutely. I can speak on that. Will it potentially cause somebody to commit suicide? Absolutely. I can speak on that. But that's not my main topic. So if you want me to do a whole topic on suicide, it's not going to happen, because that's not my story. That's not my experience.
And I think that's deeply important. That's a strong message out there, you know, and that's the message that as an advocate of somebody who has lived it, you know, we need to start bringing real changes, real awareness. You know, the awareness really needs to be from somebody who has lived it. I want to get into your workshops, because you talked about your workshops a little bit. So if anybody would like to take part in your workshops, how can they go about that?
The easiest way is just to go to my website. In the very first page, there's a couple links on there. One, first, if you want me as a speaking presenter, because I can come to your country, your city, your neighborhood, whatever, and I can do a presentation live, which are always the better way to go about it, if you can, because there's something about, you know, standing up front and people seeing that I'm a live human being, and realizing, oh my God, she's just a regular parent and this happened to her, and they pay attention better. But I also do workshops. They're monthly. There's a little button on the front page of that as well. You can just click on it. It'll send you right through to, I can't remember if it sends you through to Eventbrite or if it sends you through to Zoom to register. But anyway, one of the two, because I go through both avenues. So that's the best way to probably reach it. You can find me on LinkedIn, you can find me on Twitter, and quite often I have, you know, I'll post the event there so that people can see it as well. But just head to my parentwithpurpose.ca page. You can't miss it. I'm on the very front page, so you'll know you're on the right one, because there is a couple other ones out there, but they're parentwithpurpose.com or .org or .net. So if you see me on the front page with my husband, that's the right page.
And there's so many people that have all these different websites, and they have the last digits that are wrong, you know, like, well, they're not wrong. They're other websites. But I mean, you know, sometimes we miss what we're looking for because of the end of the website.
Or like we discussed earlier, people just forget that it's parent with purpose. It's not parents with purpose, or it's not parenting with a purpose. It's parent with purpose. So you just get one thing wrong. It's really hard. So if you just even type in my name into Google, honestly, you'll find me, because I'm all over the place in there. And then you'll see the website, Parent with Purpose, and just click on it. So if you forget, just type in my name. But then that's a problem, because you got to type in Lynda with a Y, not an I. If you type it in with an I, you won't find me.
I actually like the way that your name is spelled. I like it better with the Y and then the I. I find it's unique. It's different. I like it. And I love different. So Lynda, I want to get into some of the resources that you have for the children on your website. Okay. You have a couple. I'm going to just name a couple because I wrote a couple down. So My Body is My Body. I actually took part in that program when I was a teen. Nice. Amazing one. Then you have For Children, for Safe Kids. And then you have My Keychain Guardian. So do you want to tell us a little bit about those ones? And a little bit about My Body is My Body. Even though I took it, there might be somebody that...
These are all resources that once you've taken my workshop, you can go on to my website. And these are resources to help you do things with your family that I suggested during the workshop. So my workshop is designed and there to help you open those lines of communications with your kids. So I educate you on what domestic sex trafficking looks like, because we all think it looks like the movie Taken, and it doesn't. I mean, it can, but typically domestic sex trafficking doesn't. It looks like a boyfriend or a best friend or a neighbor or a leader or a teacher or unfortunately, sometimes parents are trafficking their own kids. So it looks like a regular relationship. So I teach you on all of that. So you can't be misled by what media or movies are trying to show to you, because that was my number one biggest mistake. And then I show you what like who they're trafficking, why they're trafficking, why this person was a good target, how they're going about it. Then we go into the vulnerability section and I show you what some of the vulnerabilities are that traffickers or abusers are looking for, because they're easy targets. And I show you how you can find out what those are before the trafficker does. And then we go into teaching age appropriate consent. So it goes right from toddler all the way up to 25. It's obviously doesn't have any sexuality in it for the younger ages. And then if we've done that job properly when they were toddlers, then it's an easy transition into when they're not. But if we're starting with somebody who's already a teen or a young adult, and we have to bring sexuality into it, then I give lots of different ways that you can bring up this conversation in a very comfortable, easy way and just start those conversations. The resources on my websites are all there to help support part of what happened through that workshop. Some of it is on there, so if somebody comes across the website, then they're more than welcome to just click on it and use it as well. The keychain is just, it's been so long since I put that on the website. I forget exactly what it does. I think it has a little beep or something. So if somebody's in trouble and it's on their keychain, they can click it. My body is just a great way to teach your kids that they have a right to say no. We teach our kids not to say no. You can't say no, especially to an adult. And now we're telling them, okay, well, you can say no, but only about your body. So we have to do it in a fun way, or they're not going to hear it either. So those two little courses, there's one for young kids and then there's one for teens, and it's done with good music, and it's just fun. But it teaches your children that they have a right to use their voice. They have a right to say no, and they have a right to ensure who is in their bubble, who's in their personal space. And we tend to forget to do that. So there's all kinds of different resources on there for all kinds of different things to help you. There's a couple company, and I've vetted all of these so that I could say, yes, definitely go and check this out. There's people on there that can teach you more about online, because I don't know a whole lot about online safety. I know just the basics, but I've got experts on there that you can reach out to. There's all the contract, obviously, the cell phone contract is on there. So I'm trying to find games and books and all kinds of things that will help families develop and become stronger family units. Because if you have a strong family unit, less likely that they're going to be trafficked or abused. And we have a really strong family unit. So let me clarify that by saying you're not guaranteed not to be trafficked or abused. You still have to be aware of what all of this is so that you can protect yourself from it. So the website's just chock full of stuff. And I'm always looking for other things to add on there so that it's, it can help the people after they've done the workshop.
And I think it's really important that we get some children's books out there, about, it's not about the sexuality. It's about the awareness, get a good story in there on the awareness, the red flags. You write a book with a bunch of different red flags and lift the flags up. And kind of those pop-it books where you just kind of flip everything, like a flip it, what's under that red flag, and kind of just bring the awareness. There's different ways that we can educate children.
I believe
without being triggered, right?
Without being triggered, yeah. Or without it getting into something that their brain isn't ready to cope with yet, right? And that's where we have to be careful. But because unfortunately, whether we like it or not, they're having to learn some of this stuff way too early. If we don't have those conversations with them, somebody will, and they'll be teaching them stuff we don't want them to know, or in a way we don't want them to know by, meaning personal experience. We don't want them to learn that way. But I do believe there is a book on my website. I'll have to double check that, Liz, but I think there is a book on there for kids. But if anybody has any other ones that they can suggest, I'd gladly add them in once I've edited them out.
Do you know if there's any board games or anything out there about good conversation, like having a conversation?
Yes. And I'm in the process right now of trying to get them to email me to give me permission to put it on my website, because I don't put anything on my website without permission. So I've been waiting and I have not heard back from them. It's annoying as all get out, but there is one. Right now, the name escapes me, but there definitely is one. And it's just a way to start those conversations. But even in my workshop, I actually give some tips and hints of things that they can do just on a regular daily basis to start those conversations. Because we've lost the art of spending time with their kids, because time is so precious. I mean, that's our biggest commodity, over cash even anymore. So we've lost the art of how to sit down and just have conversations. So how are we supposed to do this in a very busy life? So the workshop talks a lot about that as well. So ways of still being able to connect with your kids, have those conversations. And you got to start off with conversations that aren't serious conversations. Like, you just can't dive into the big ones, the hard topics, because you're just going to stun them. Yeah.
Then you're going to back it down to like, what are you doing this afternoon? You know, it's kind of like coming in a bulldozer.
Yes. And you have to be their safe place first before they're going to tell you anything. So if you haven't done that groundwork to be their safe place first, and you come in with them with a difficult conversation, they're just going to shut you down, like, instantly. They're going to go, you know, like teenagers do.
Yeah. You get the rolled eyes, right? Oh,
Yes.
Mom, like, really?
Yeah.
You know, I've gotten those a lot. Mom, really?
Yep.
And you didn't do that when you were, when they really throw it back, but you didn't do that when you were a kid,
right? I know.
And I was like, that's before the internet came out.
And we did not have conversations with our parents either. I mean, parents literally did just go, okay, we're going to get married, we're going to have kids, we're going to retire, right? That's their whole purpose. That was their existence. And we had some dangers, but we certainly don't have the dangers that we do now. Internet itself has created a ton of dangers. And, you know, so in my book, Walk a Mile, and as I'm writing it, I was struggling with this, because it's like, why is this so important now, but it wasn't when my mom was raising us? Like, we didn't even think twice about this. You know, and what we did, even with my kids when they were younger, stranger danger was our biggest thing. And that was one of the dumbest things we've ever done, because that's so wrong. I mean, it's the people we know the most that tend to hurt our kids, right? But anyway, that was our biggest thing, because we believed sex trafficking was they're going to throw them into a van and take them to another country. And that is so not what it looks like over, you know, in your own country. You can literally be trafficked by your next door neighbor and still live at home and your parents not know it. So literally, and like, I'm not joking. I was actually for a walk the other day and saw this girl getting dropped off by a driver, and instantly knew what was going on. But to anybody else, she just looks like a girl who was coming home from school. But I clued into the fact of what the car was, the fact that there was a driver, the fact that she was underage, the fact that she had a backpack on, and it was school time. What was she doing at this person's house? And I'd never seen her there before, but she looked like somebody, a dad, was just dropping her off at home. And it wasn't that at all. And there wasn't a thing I could do about it. Not a single solitary thing I could do about it, except do what I'm doing now. So that's why I do what I do.
Well, that's the thing, right? If you call and report everything that you see, then you start to go into panic mode, right? Paranoia, you know, and sometimes the red flags are right there, but because you've gone through it, sometimes you have to take that step back and say, you know what?
Well, and, you know, unfortunately, our girls are getting trafficked. Not just girls, mostly girls, but not just girls, are getting trafficked right out of school. I mean, we did a commercial with it with Victim Services here in our area. Like, literally, the kids go to school, they get picked up by their pimp or the driver or whatever, and they go and they work all day, and then they come back and get back on the bus and come home. And the parents have no idea.
Yeah. So, well, that's the thing, right? It's right in front of us, and we don't know about it. You know, and school is a danger place, because we're not teaching the children anymore about the buddy systems, or, you know, if something's off, even with teachers, you know, sometimes teachers are the predators. They're, you know, saying, oh, well, you're going to go and do this errand for so-and-so and you'll be back. And it really is, Bruce. It's heartbreaking on how much is right in front of us, and we can't do a thing about it. And I think by having these open conversations and bringing the awareness, we're opening doors, we're opening eyes and saying, pay attention, have those conversations. You know, even dinner talks.
Yes.
People are not sitting down and having dinner conversations anymore. People are in one room, or bring it to my bedroom, or bring, you know. I want to talk about the book because we're almost at the end, Lynda. So Walk a Mile. How did you get that title for that book? And where can people grab that book?
Okay, they can grab it from Amazon. The title was originally, it was a whole different title when I first started. It was Stepping Out of the Shadows of Shame. But I know another woman who is a survivor who wrote a book, and I didn't realize that her title of her book was The Shadow of Shame. No, it was too similar. And I respect her too much and thought, I am not going to do this to her. We talked about it, and she said, if you want to, I don't care. But it just didn't feel right to do that. So my daughter and I were talking about it, and she had come up with 3 different titles. And when she said Walk a Mile, I just went, that's it. Because the book is about my journey parenting my daughter, but it's also about me parenting her through her walk of her mile that she had to go through. So it's, the one thing we always say, don't judge anybody until you've walked a mile in their shoes. Well, now you can read my book and then you can judge me. So, but
Well, we're gonna get
either
either way, right? That's what I tell my children. You get judged if you do it and if you don't do it. So,
absolutely,
that's just the way human nature is. Everybody judges.
absolutely. So the book is written. I mean, it is a memoir of my journey parenting her, but it's done in a story format. So people who even like fiction will definitely be able to read it and be able to learn from it, and just see what we miss. Because I'm very apparent. I'm an open book, no pun intended, in my story about it, about all the things that we did right, all the things that we did wrong, in the hopes that somebody else does not have to go through this. So.
Well, I really want to thank you. So, Lynda, what's your final message to all the listeners out there?
Don't assume anything. You are a parent. Ask questions. Have those conversations with your kids. Don't assume because you taught them a certain way that they really know what is right or wrong. Remember, their brain is not fully developed. Just because they do something wrong doesn't make them a horrible kid. The one thing that I did really well when I was parenting was I said, I love you all the time. But what I didn't say was, I love you no matter what. And I think it's something as parents, we have to remember that our kids need to understand that no matter what happens to them, no matter whether what happens to them is their fault or not, we can't shut our door on them, and we can't let them feel like they can't come home and talk to us about it. We have all made mistakes growing up, and the number one thing we should be doing as parents, we should be doing as human beings for each other, but in particular, our kids, is making sure that we're supporting them, that we're there for them, and that they know that they know we're not going to turn our back on them, and that, yeah, we may be disappointed that they made a bad choice, but so what? Tomorrow will be a new day. We'll figure it out. We'll work it out together.
Well, I really want to thank you, Lynda, for tuning and joining me today with your tea and bringing the awareness and having this open conversation, mother to mother. It actually helps to understand. We talked about a few things before we came live as well. So thank you for that as well. I want to really thank you. I want to thank the listeners and the viewers out there. Without all of you guys, I could not do all of this. I could not bring these tea times to the table. So if you'd like to know more about Miss Liz, you could check out my website at www.misslizsteatimes.com. If you'd like to reach Lynda, I'm going to get Lynda to read out her website. And if you could spell it out for the audio listeners.
Absolutely. So it's parentwithpurpose.ca. So it's parentwithpurpose.ca.
Thank you so much, Lynda. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. I will be back at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we're going to be talking about mentoring and grief. We have Doug Lawrence coming in, and he'll be sharing his story. You are not alone. His story of his wife and that passing, and how it has changed his life as well. So today we're going to be talking about some life stories who have really changed their lives and impacted and brought awareness to services and resources that they use now to help others. If you'd like to know more about Lynda and you would like to hear these tea times on the replay, you could check out Miss Liz's platforms. Go over to the YouTube channel. That's the best one to check out. Give it a quick subscribe, ring that little doorbell, and you'll be notified when all these tea times go live. Until then, I will see everybody at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to keep sharing educational tea times this year. So you're going to see a lot of tea times that will bring awareness. And if you want a certain topic on Tea Time and Miss Liz hasn't had it yet, please let me know, and I will try my best to get them on to Tea Time. If you'd like to know who February's guests are, because we're at the end of January, you can go to Miss Liz's Facebook page and platforms, and check out the press release that has been released, and you'll see the incredible 12 guests that are coming for February. Until then, I will see everybody, and I'll wish you all a good day. Stay safe, have some conversations, keep the communication lines open, and check out Lynda's website and check out that contract, the phone contract, because I deeply encourage all parents out there to have that conversation with your kids. And I'll see you guys at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with a second T.